Welcome to Tilly's Trans Tuesdays. Today we're going to see what it means to self-actualize, talk about self-hating trans people, and touch your heart as we wrap up with the intentional trans allegory of real genius, part 4. Hi, I'm Tilly Bridges, your host, and I'm joined by my writing partner, my best friend, my wife, our token cis representation, the hot and totally popped Susan Bridges.
Hello. I'm a popcorn.
Okay. Our returning guest is the illustrious Kestrel Clayton. Welcome back one more time, Kes.
Thank you so much, Tilly. I'm delighted to be here with you again. I'm having so much fun with this series of podcasts. I'm looking forward to episode 4.
I'm so delighted
The
to hear.
stirring conclusion.
Yes.
The stunning conclusion. Not just the conclusion, but it's stunning, too.
It will stun you. Okay.
You won't believe what Tilly Bridges has to say. Parentheses, not what you think.
It's true. It's all true. Okay, if you had one piece of advice for people who are just starting their transition, what would it be?
One piece of advice. Oh, that's a tough one. I would say get connected. Find trans spaces online. Find trans people like yourself or non-binary people, if that fits closer with how you identify. Do not try to do this alone. You will find that you have more support and more friends than you ever dreamed possible, and they will show you that you are stronger than you imagined you could be.
Yeah, it's so important because we can't get through all of this stuff on our own. We need everyone to support us and help us and to help and support others, and even in doing that, we end up helping ourselves so much of the time too.
So I would really say, I'm going to plug your Discord now. If you are trans or non-binary or wondering if you are, definitely check out the Tillyverse Discord. She's got links to it on pretty much all her social spaces. You are welcome there, and we will help you figure things out.
Yeah, we will. And yeah, as I mentioned in the credits of every episode on this show, if you just go to the very bottom of TillysTransTuesdays.com, it is there on the bottom of every page of the whole site. So you will find the link. It is not hidden. Before we begin, be sure you've listened to episodes 103 to 105, the 3 prior parts of this Real Genius breakdown, because starting with this episode here will do you absolutely no good. All right, let's bring this baby home. 46 minutes, 4 seconds. Despite not being understood by his parents, Mitch wants to go home because when he came the closest he's ever been to being happy, he got yelled at for it and saw a man get made fun of for wearing makeup. He's scared. He just wants to go back to the way things were when he had no idea you could be anything other than what society told you that you were, because this way is difficult and painful. Remember Neo in the first Matrix, quote, "Why is this happening to me? What did I do? I'm nobody. I didn't do anything. I'm going to die." Nobody asks to be trans. It's foisted upon us by genetics or fate or the universe or whatever deities you believe in. And again, can't tell you how many trans people go through that. Why did I have to be trans? I don't want to be trans. This is scary and hard and society will hate me. Why can't I just be quote unquote normal? I mean, right now, I actually do want to be trans. I love it. It's great. But, the first time, you really worry. You wonder. And it's a hard thing to come to terms with.
Mitch's call home always hit me so hard, even when I was a little kid and did not really understand why.
Yeah.
But here's an assigned male at birth person crying, expressing feelings and emotional need, vulnerability, and he's punished for it.
He sure is.
Society and Kent especially, Kent loves stomping down the gender nonconforming. Society needs to hurt him. They need to teach him that leaving the little tiny role prescribed for him gets him pain and ostracism.
Yeah.
And his parents aren't on his side either. His father says on the phone, "Are you crying? I hope nobody sees you."
Yep.
Mitch is surrounded by this masculine hypercompetitiveness, this need to be strong and manly every second, and it makes him miserable. I'm
Yeah.
not gender essentialist, but patriarchy is. And Mitch's
Yeah.
whole arc, this whole movie, is about him realizing he needs to put that aside in order to
Yeah.
be who he really is.
Yeah. 47 minutes, 15 seconds. Mitch's call was recorded by Ultra Conformo Kent, and he's publicly humiliated for being a man who has feelings. His mom tells him he has to be, quote, her little soldier, and his dad says he hopes nobody, quote, saw him crying. It's toxic masculinity all over. Just go conform and be a man, Mitch. Suck it up. Stop having feelings and being anything other than what society says a man can be.
Yeah, that resonates so much with me still that I'm having feelings.
Yeah, it's hard. I was told the same thing, my whole life. So it's awful. And I'm sure PJ heard it all the time too.
And I feel like cis
Sure
people
she did.
do not realize. They do not realize that society has an agenda and they are forcing you into gender roles every day of your life.
And it's reinforced everywhere and in every bit of media you see all the time.
And that's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
The pressure to conform and everything is all about being heteronormative. And so
And cis
they see
normative.
trans people as this threat to that.
Yep.
Because you don't have to be that way.
Right. We prove it.
And it's just so annoying.
And even if you're cis, even if you are mostly comfortable with the roles assigned to you by society, it still limits you. It tells you you must be this and nothing else. Anything else has to be cut away and ignored. And it's not good for anybody. Even if you are one of the people patriarchy puts closer to the top of the heap, you still don't get to be you. It still narrowly circumscribes who you are allowed to be, even for cis men and women.
Yep, exactly right. 48 minutes, 27 seconds. Chris catches Mitch packing to leave and tells him if he does it, he'll, quote, miss the fun. If Mitch gives up on accepting his true self, he will never find the trans joy that exists on the other side. 48 minutes, 40 seconds. Mitch says he needed Chris's help and all Chris wanted to do was party. Chris says he was just trying to help him relax about society's cis-binary rules so he can fully explore his true identity. And it worked. Jordan came in and a gender non-conforming woman was the answer to relieving his dysphoria.
Chris knows that the roles prescribed for him and for Mitch are wrong and painful. And in this
Yeah.
speech, he says, I was just like you. My mother forced me to wear male coded clothes, carry
Yeah.
male coded accessories, perform masculinity. And then he explicitly says, and then I saw Laszlo going into the closet and I followed him and I saw what that life would give me. Again, that's not subtext, that is text.
Yep. 48 minutes, 55 seconds. Mitch thought Pacific Tech would be different, but it's the same as high school. They're both social hierarchies with Mitch at the bottom for not conforming. Even when pretending to be a cis guy, I was bullied and shunned through all of school and childhood. Because even in that costume I didn't know how to wear, playing a part I didn't know how to play, trying to be someone I wasn't who society said a man was, someone I could never be, and the bullies see that and they will use it against you. 49 minutes, 10 seconds. Chris explains how he used to be just like Mitch and his mother dressed him the same way. Chris had all the same male expectations laid upon him by the cis people in his life. 49 minutes, 24 seconds. One night, Chris had a vision, Hollyfeld, in the closet, and he talked to him and found out Hollyfeld used to be where Chris is now, but he buckled under the pressure because there was nothing more to his life than what society expected of him. Hollyfeld didn't see that there was more to life than living up to society's false expectations, and that by doing so, he was hurting other people, like him, other trans people, because he kept himself in the closet. And this is what changed Chris and why he transitioned and is the person he is now. He didn't want to end up that way. And Chris tells Mitch he's going to end up the same way if he doesn't wake up and choose a better life. And I freaking told you Hollyfeld was Mitch's future self. Also, please note, I don't think this movie is saying that if you're trans, you have to come out. As a trans woman in the 80s, PJ was intimately aware of how dangerous and difficult it can be. But this is also acknowledging that the more of us who stay in the closet, the less of us it appears there are, which means less people see us, learn about us, are inspired by us to come out for themselves. And the more of us that come out can increase societal acceptance. It's definitely a double-edged sword. Coming out puts us in danger, but staying in the closet makes the entire trans community's advancement more difficult. No one must come out, but for those of us who it's relatively safe for, we do have some obligation to each other. Matrix Reloaded deals with this as one of the big themes it tackles.
And if you can't come out, you are still trans.
Absolutely are.
If you look at trans people and say, "Oh, I want to do that, but I can't," you're trans, honey. Now it's just a question of how you deal with it.
Exactly right. I also think this was PJ working through the issue herself, trying to convince herself to come out. She knew it would not only help her, but other trans people. But society doesn't let coming out be something that exists only on our terms, does it? It would take PJ another 2 decades to get there, but get there she did.
And I'm so glad she did.
Me too. 54 minutes, 24 seconds. Susan, can you hammer a 6-inch spike through a board with your penis? Chris, not right now. Okay, listen. He was just hitting on her, and she asks him if his penis is all manly, and he replies, no? His response is funny, and sometimes a joke is just a joke. But this is the second joke about how this apparent cis man, who is into ladies, as PJ was, either does not have a penis or does not have one that functions the way you'd expect. Hey, HRT definitely does that. I'm just saying.
So the performative doodly thirstiness in this movie doesn't
Yeah,
always sit comfortably with me, but that's the 80s. But I
yeah,
do know that when that performative hypersexuality comes into play, it's usually being used to subvert something about patriarchal cisgender
yeah,
expectations. That's clever.
yeah. And his not right now is so funny because it's the last thing you expect him to say, right? So it subverts those expectations, which is what humor is all about. 55 minutes, 9 seconds. Hathaway says Chris is no longer of any use to him and he won't allow him to graduate. Chris says he'll go to the dean and tell him about his work on the laser, which should merit a degree on its own. Hathaway reminds him, who's he going to believe, you or me? And note the wording when Chris said he could pass Hathaway's class. Even if you pass, you don't pass. The cis white man in charge is telling Chris he controls his future, and even if he passed as a cis woman, he wouldn't pass, meaning Hathaway would out him. And as a reminder, back when this movie was written and made, passing as cis and disappearing into the woodwork, known as woodworking, was required to transition. See Misgendering and Passing in episode 34 and Transmedicalism in episode 60. Who will society believe? The weirdo nonconformist who says they're a woman despite having apparent mismatched secondary sexual characteristics? Or the entire cis white man-led history saying we are all defined by our genitals at birth? See Trans History in episode 79 for discussion on the presumed cisgenderness throughout all of history and the problems it causes us in the present.
And I think in some ways this is as much a coming out story for Chris as it is for Mitch, because this is a scene where Chris comes to realize that who he is and his future needs to be more than just token defiance of the expectations of others.
Yeah,
That defiance is important, but we are so much more than that. And we ultimately cannot make our existences conditional on others accepting us, because even if you pass, some people are still going to say you don't pass. We cannot let them be the gatekeepers of who we are. And we have to be more than just a reaction to that as well.
very well said.
Thank you.
57 minutes, 48 seconds. During his plans to get back at Hathaway, Chris pretends to be conforming to gain Hathaway's trust and acceptance. This is different than him throwing away the popcorn because he's not actually trying to appease anyone here. It is a ruse. 58 minutes, 5 seconds. You can see he's still got signs of his true self there with the slippers. He's letting Hathaway know he can play the game if he has to, but his spirit and will cannot be crushed. 58 minutes, 36 seconds. As Chris and Mitch work on not being entirely shunned by society, Holyfeld is still there behind them, looming in the closet, reminding them of what awaits if they actually conform and reject their truth. 1 hour, 28 seconds. Mitch is dreaming about being shoved in a mailbox, again, by men who are mad he won't conform. The closer we get to actualizing, the scarier it gets to think about how the people in our lives are going to react. From the letter we discussed in part 1, we know PJ clearly had those same well-founded fears, which absolutely devastatingly came to pass the second she came out. 1 hour, 2 minutes. They meet Holyfeld, who's been watching them. He's using his skills to enter a contest over 1 million times, but it's not breaking the rules. Quote, they set up the rules, and I've come to realize I have certain materialistic needs. Going back to PJ's letter again, it's bullshit to have to quote, unquote, live as a woman by society's rigid definition of what that is just to access the medical care we need, or to pretend to be attracted to men when you're not. But if that's what we have to do to fool them into thinking we're conformals who will uphold the gender binary, we'll do it. Us having to conform to crap like that just to get the care we need has had some bad consequences, which we'll get to shortly. 1 hour, 2 minutes, 32 seconds. Holyfeld, for no real reason, says Mitch is going to grow 5 inches in the next year, which makes no sense until you remember that earlier Chris made a joke about how, of course, Mitch wasn't looking for Holyfeld's clothes in the closet because Holyfeld was much bigger and they wouldn't fit. If Mitch stays on his path, in a year, he will have grown into the man in the closet. I told you, Holyfeld was Mitch's future. Ahem.
And I think that's also the scene where Laszlo doesn't react to his birth name. He reacts with puzzlement and then after a moment says, oh, that's me. That to me suggests that Laszlo has maybe a different name that he uses to think of himself internally. And I think a lot of us, even before we hatch, maybe before we even think about whether we're trans, might consider different names.
That is a brilliant observation and one that I completely missed. Good job.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad I contributed at least one thing.
You contributed much.
Oh, thank you.
1 hour, 3 minutes, 5 seconds. Let us just pretend Sherry did not say she was waiting 3 years since Mitch was 12 to be old enough to try and seduce. He is 15 now. Great googly moogly. This is very, very cringe. I'm going to presume
80s were a different time and not a good one. Let's not turn back the clock. I don't want to go back to the 80s. No, they were not a good time.
I'm going to presume one of the other writers was responsible for that mega problematic moment. But note that Sherry, the only other woman besides Jordan in the movie, wants Mitch. She previously liked Chris and all the other quote-unquote smart people in the vast minority, the metaphor for trans people. Again, remember this for when we get to the end. 1 hour, 4 minutes, 29 seconds. Mitch didn't want to sex her up, so he goes to Jordan, who he does want to sex up, but she's 19 and he's 15, and yikes, that's more cringe. The point, though, is that here Mitch is more comfortable with a gender non-conforming woman. He's more comfortable with her now than he's ever been. And again, remember this when we get to the end. Is this kiss, like every kiss in all Matrix movies, one of self-acceptance? Maybe. 1 hour, 5 minutes, 13 seconds. As they're leaving the lab, one of the other students working on the laser says, "Let's go, girls." Another asks what he means by that, and he says, "It's a figure of speech." Is it? Is it, though? Because while guys and dude words for men have certainly become standard for applying to people of all genders in our patriarchal society, see Trans Rep in Media 2024 starting in episode 97 for more on that, the reverse is never true. Nobody, least of all a cis man, says let's go girls to a room of other cis men, unless perhaps they're gay, queer, or unless perhaps they're not cis men but trans women. I'm just saying.
Or unless you're trying to put them down by saying
True.
You're not adequately masculine. Because what is more insulting in a patriarchal society than saying, lol, you're a woman?
Being compared to a woman
You're
is
like
the worst
a
thing.
girl.
Yeah.
Ew,
Yeah.
cootie.
There's so much going on with that one little line.
But the person distressed by that is Bodhi. That's the person who earlier said he was giving himself electroconvulsive therapy, shock therapy, to make himself more conforming. And as we discussed, that is something that was and continued to be until after this movie was made, used to torture gender nonconforming people in an attempt to make them cisgender and heterosexual. It was given non-consensually to mental health patients up until the 1970s. And there's this really quick bit where somebody says, let's go, girls. And Bodhi is shocked by that. He's saying his cover is blown. What do you mean by that? Again, that's not subtext, that's text. And I think for a lot of people like you and me, being told by bullies, you're not adequately masculine, that bit deep because we knew this was a thing we were supposed to be and we're not.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also something really weird to unpack in there about how, when being perceived as a boy, I was punished for not being masculine enough and it was compared to being a girl. And then when I'm like, actually, I am a girl, then you're punished for that too. There's no way you can win. You
Yep,
cannot win
you're
with bullies.
gay. You're gay. You're a girl. Okay, fine. I'm a gay girl. No, you can't.
Yeah. 1 hour, 5 minutes, 53 seconds. Kent again directly sabotages other trans people for his own personal gain. Self-hating trans people are the worst. 1 hour, 14 minutes, 14 seconds. As soon as Hathaway surprisingly gets what he wants from Chris, Kent is of no use to him and is abandoned. The bigots do not care about you, you damn pick-me fools. They will abandon you the second you are of no use to furthering their goals. Help leopards get your face eaten.
Thank you.
1 hour, 15 minutes, 13 seconds. Chris, let's get a burger. Sometimes a burger is just a burger. But also in the scene with the pool party in the auditorium, back at 40 minutes, 28 seconds, I told you to put a pin in that note. Do you remember it? Chris told one of the women not to eat something because it would make her breasts bigger. What was she about to eat? Say it with me, babes. A burger.
Burger. I noted that watching through this week in preparation for this podcast, and I thought, Kestrel, you're probably reading too much into it. You're overthinking it, but
Nope.
I am so glad that you saw the same thing. But
Yeah,
do cheeseburgers actually give incredibly large breasts? I think I need to experiment.
we should all eat many of them and find out.
We should definitely eat more burgers.
Yes. That is a weird thing for an apparent cis man to do now if it's going to make his boobs grow, isn't it? Sure seems like Chris is helping Mitch start HRT. I'm just saying. 1 hour, 16 minutes, 10 seconds. Laszlo appears. Chris, I'm so glad you came out. Came out. Laszlo, Mitch's future is on his way out of the closet. Chris, want a hamburger? Hey, you're out of the closet. Time to grow some boobs, yeah? Come on, it is right there.
And this is the scene in which Chris and Mitch become aware of the social context of their work, which they previously saw only as an intellectual exercise,
Right.
and were not only blind to its implications, but did not care. Likewise, Laszlo, before he hatched, cracked, is described as being all science, no
Yeah.
philosophy. And I think the implications of that today are more relevant than ever because we live in a society that valorizes STEM and rationality, you know, F your feelings, and the
Yeah.
idea that we should be cold, even callous, and what really matters is just the hardcore reason and nothing else. Think with your brain, not your heart.
Yeah.
But look where that's taking us. As a very wise man put it, that's given us guided missiles and misguided men. And
Yeah.
incidentally, if I can plug another piece of media, may I recommend to anybody who's interested in video games Horizon Zero Dawn, because it is very much about what happens when reason is decoupled from emotional intelligence and why both of these things are necessary.
I did not know that about that game. Thank you for mentioning it.
Oh,
I'm going to check it out now.
check it out. You will thank me.
I will make a note to thank you. 1 hour, 17 minutes, 5 seconds. Chris and Mitch have conformed and help Hathaway achieve his goals that will bring him more power and wealth. Holyfeld lets them know that it's going to be used to hurt other people, just like his conforming and forcing himself into the closet was used to hurt others. By getting Hathaway's approval, they have aided him in hurting others in the future. That was something they never intended. They'd been thinking only about making life easier for themselves. By conforming to what society wants, quote unquote, living as a woman for a year before you can get access to care, pretending to be attracted to men, even to get something we need, we are hurting others because that reinforces that that's the way it should be done. And then other trans people who need access to that care will have to go through the same thing, and it could and likely will hurt them too. And I don't think this is saying trans people back in the 80s shouldn't have done what they needed to do to get the medical care they needed. The point is that the system itself is harmful and needs to change. We shouldn't have to hurt others to help ourselves. 1 hour, 20 minutes, 35 seconds. Kent gets a literal come to Jesus moment, which is remarkable when you remember all the Christianity allusions in the names of Chris, Mitch, Jordan, and Hollyfeld. They are literally bringing him closer to them, as in away from being a self-hating trans person and toward accepting himself and breaking his support of the false cis-binary matrix of society.
And I found it really notable that Mitchell, Michael, who is like God,
Yeah,
is the one pretending to be the voice of God.
yeah. That's a very good observation.
I actually didn't put that together until in the first episode you mentioned that Mitchell comes from the name Michael,
Yeah,
which is Hebrew for he who is like God.
yeah. Amazing. 1 hour, 21 minutes, 1 second. Even Kent the Conformo is surprised to learn that working to help the system in order to get its rewards has hurt others. He didn't realize that just doing what was asked of him could affect others. 1 hour, 23 minutes, 47 seconds. When they get to the fake IDs, Chris, mine looks like him and his looks like me. Another nod for you that, hey, they are alike. They're both trans people, and Mitch is moving closer to Chris, transitioning and being an out trans person. All the subterfuge with the plane and the laser is a metaphor for Mitch and Chris finding a way to change the system so nobody gets hurt. 1 hour, 31 minutes, 28 seconds. Kent, waking up to his own transness, doesn't know what's wrong with him and is looking for answers and is reading about schizophrenia. I'll remind you again that being trans used to be classified as a mental illness, and you should brush up on Transmedicalism and WPATH version 1 in episode 60 for more on that bullshit. That was the prevailing thought among the medical field at the time this movie was made and released, and how freaking sad is it that if you wondered if you might be trans, this is where you'd look for answers. It's terrible, but also, do you see how trans this is? 1 hour, 32 minutes, 5 seconds. We see Mega Conformo Kent is wearing a dickie. Even his conforming wasn't the true him. It was literally a costume he put on because it's what was expected of him. Again, the false binary cis status quo also hurts cis people and forces you to wear a costume and perform your gender a certain way. It's toxic masculinity again. It's boys don't cry. It's men can only display anger and lust. It's women have to have narrow shoulders and thin waists and shaved legs and on and on. But as a self-hating trans person, someone who hid their own transness and became a vocal transphobe and oppressed trans people to show how not really trans they were, this shows you Kent is dropping the costume he felt he had to wear and the role he had to play. He has moved closer to self-actualized and out trans people like Chris. He is told by quote-unquote Jesus to wait by Hathaway's house for a sign. With moving toward Christianity being the metaphor for moving toward transness, what do you think that means? We will get there soon. 1 hour, 33 minutes, 50 seconds. Confirming what I surmised about Gene before, here's your proof that he is in fact trans like Chris and Mitch, as evidenced by their matching bunny slippers. They do not conform in the same way. Gene may only show a little of it now, but it's there, an egg perhaps finally beginning to crack. 1 hour, 37 minutes, 28 seconds. Kent gets his first taste of what's to come as he is now in proximity to the thing that inconveniences Hathaway. Do you remember what the popcorn was a metaphor for? Transness. He eats a piece. He's accepting himself. 1 hour, 38 minutes, 29 seconds, and it carries him right to Chris and Mitch. Accepting your transness carries you to community with other trans people. And look how Mitch and Chris were worried about him as he approached the house and then helped him when he needed it. And he's happy to see them. As soon as Kent cast off the false shell of the person he was pretending to be, even if he hadn't yet figured out who he is, they were there to literally pick him up and help carry the weight, just like Chris did for Mitch when they first met, although not literally in that case.
I found it really notable that Kent, despite being a character who is very hard to like,
Yeah.
isn't punished. He isn't
No.
suffering at the end. He's joyous. I feel like he's hatching in this moment. He's seeing who he is can be a source of joy and seeing that Chris and Mitch had it right all along. Being a conformo didn't make me happy, but this will.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, notable that they're not angry with him. Like, as soon as he casts off that shell, they are right there. They're worried about him. They don't want him to get hurt. They're there to help him immediately. Just accept yourself and we will be there. Stop
Yeah,
hurting us and we will be there for you.
they will not allow Kent to victimize them, but
Right.
there's no vindictiveness. Once you decide you want to get out of this system because it victimizes you too, we are in this together and we will help you. And as
Yeah.
I said, finding trans communities, I found so many people and so much more support and so much more trans joy than I ever thought was possible. And that's another moment in the movie that always hits me really hard.
Yeah. 1 hour, 40 minutes, 6 seconds. Holyfeld returns. Look at him. By helping others not conformed, it's helped him break out of his own conformity and performance of the cis binary. Mitch's future is now one of nonconformity. Mitch will transition and find joy. He will be out of the closet and free. 1 hour, 41 minutes, 34 seconds. Holyfeld says it's getting weird around here. Chris, absolutely. Jordan, I didn't notice. Mitch, I like it. Jordan didn't notice it because she's always been quote unquote weird. Chris has embraced it, and so have Mitch and Holyfeld. And here's why I told you to pay attention to the two women. My read is that Jordan is representative of Mitch's first steps to figuring out who he is, gender nonconformity, and he is with her now. He is a gender nonconforming woman. We know Sherry, the arch-feminine in this movie, always moved toward the fully out and self-accepted trans person. She wanted Chris and she wanted Mitch, but he wasn't ready. But Holyfeld, Mitch's future, is, and that's why Sherry is now with Holyfeld here at the end. Mitch's future is attaining full self-actualization as the trans woman he truly is.
The "it's getting weird around here" line
Yeah.
always jumped out at me too, because another word for weird is queer.
Queer.
It's getting queer around here.
I do not believe that the movie is saying you're not a woman if you're not high femme. I think it was just made in the 80s and uses broad archetypes of girly girls and tomboys to make its point about where Mitch got to, how he got there, and where he'll end up by staying out of the closet. 1 hour, 41 minutes, 38 seconds. Look at the happiness that accepting trans joy brings to everyone when we don't let the quote-unquote inconvenience of our existence to cis society be more important than living our lives as our authentic selves.
And this isn't a story about using violence against violence. They don't beat the bad guys by killing them. The figuratively trans people fight back by laughing, by mocking the people who are trying to hurt them, and by being themselves and by loving themselves. That's how
Yeah.
they win.
Yeah. It's also similar to what is done in Matrix Revolutions, where the message is that the way forward is not to do to cis people what they've done to us, but to find a way forward together in peace with each other. So there's a very
Absolutely.
important thing that I think both of these very trans movies written by very trans people are telling us about our own futures.
And as Resurrections shows us, our way forward needs to be coexistence with the
Yep.
synthients. We can never frame this as us or them,
Right.
because any situation where somebody has to be a loser is not going to be a world in which we can thrive.
Yeah. Oppression's not good no matter who's being oppressed.
Exactly.
1 hour, 42 minutes, 32 seconds. Look at all the popcorn around the house. I have said it a million times and I will say it again. The more of us that come out, the more of us see what's possible, that trans joy exists and believe we can do it too. Hathaway covers his nose so he doesn't have to smell it. Too bad, smell our hot, buttery transness, bigots. We're not going anywhere. Remember that PJ was deeply closeted when this was written. It would be 20 years before she felt she could come out to the world, and when she did, it seemingly cost her her career and quite possibly her life. I see Real Genius almost as PJ's message not just to every other trans person out there, but to herself. She was examining what being trans meant to her, to the world, and trying to figure out what to do about it. Even the title is a metaphor for it, because if really smart people, geniuses, are the movie's metaphor for trans people, the title is Real Transness. Hey, I'm trans. It's real. Trans people are real. It's time to be me. I'm so glad she finally got to a point where she felt able to be herself. Are there any final thoughts you wanted to share, Cass, about this amazing movie before we wrap up?
Well, I always love the outro music, "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" by Tears for
Yeah,
Fears. I'm betting I'm not the only one who still finds that song deeply touching, and I think it's extremely apropos. It's a song about coming of age and struggling with the expectations placed on us that
yeah,
in order to fit into society, we need to behave in ways that feel unnatural to us, to turn our backs on Mother Nature.
yeah.
We to win, we have to play the game by their rules, and I don't think we should have to. But yeah, that song always gets me real misty.
Yeah. Well, it's especially impactful, I think, the way it's transposed under the scenes of joy of the community that they're finding, of the togetherness, because at the end with the popcorn, they're all just so happy. Things are better now, and so I think the marriage of those two, it hits you really hard.
I also think Chris and Mitch share more of an arc than might be immediately apparent because Chris figuratively knows he's trans, but he's still trying to conform just enough to play the game by
Right.
their rules, just enough. But he comes to realize that who he is has to be more than just a token defiance. The defiance of those expectations is important, but he is so much more than that.
Yeah.
And he's really coming into his own. Laszlo is coming into his own. Mitch is coming into his own. It's really a story about all three of them and the connections they form. So again, trans community being very important to me. That I might be imposing some of my own experiences and beliefs there, but that's what I take from it.
I would agree. Thank you for being here for this entire series, Cass. It has been a delight.
Thank you so much. I have had so much fun with this. Let's do this again sometime.
Yes, let's. Reject conformity. Reject the cisgender binary matrix. Find and be your true self and fix the system so nobody else gets hurt along the way. This is the way to joy for all of us. This is the message in Real Genius. Self-acceptance. Help those who come after. Make the world better for everyone. It's beautiful. Thank you, PJ, for your heart and courage, for your humor and your real genius, and for paving the way for trans women screenwriters like me. Tilly Bridges, end transmission. Tilly's Trans Tuesdays is hosted by Tilly Bridges and Susan Bridges, with audio editing and sound mixing by Jillian Morgan. The written essay version of this week's topic and all past topics is available at tilliestranstuesdays.com. Special thanks to Daisy and Jane for the use of Sorry Not Sorry as our show's theme music. Please stop by and show your support at daisyandjane.bandcamp.com and soundcloud.com/daisyandjane. You can find me at Tilly Bridges on Blue Sky and on Mastodon at Tilly Bridges at mastodon.social, and you can find Susan on those at Susan L. Bridges. You can find Jillian at Audio Jillian on Blue Sky. You can join the Tillyverse Discord server by following the link at the very bottom of tilliestranstuesdays.com. We hold regular watch parties for the Matrix films and other trans movies where I do a live Q&A, and it's blossomed into a wonderfully supportive, compassionate, kind community of friends. We'd love to have you join us. If you'd like to keep up with all the writing that Susan and I do, you can sign up for our newsletter at birdguestbroadcast.com. If you enjoy this show, please take a moment to leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. The largest segment of our listeners find the show there, and more reviews equals a higher profile, which means it will reach more of the people who need it. Thank you for your support. For more information, visit pendantaudio.com. Thanks for listening.